All right. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Please let me know in the chat box to the right-hand side if you can see me and hear me and everything's working properly. That would be great. Okay, thank you, Aiden. See if a few more people can confirm as well. That would be great. Got about 19 of you so far joining us. All right, everything's good. Wonderful. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to get started. So today we are going to be talking about vitamins. So I'm doing a two-part series. The first part is today, and the next part will be the same time next week, so Thursday at 11:30 Eastern. So today we're doing vitamins, and next week we're doing minerals as a two-part series on the micronutrients, because of course these two categories of vitamins and minerals are the two types of micronutrients. So we're going to be focusing in on each one, each category individually. So today we'll just be talking about vitamins. If you have questions about minerals, then be sure to join us next week, and I'll be giving a link to register for that webinar at the end of this one if you're interested. But today we're just going to be going in a bit of depth on each of the different types of vitamins, what they do, and where you can get them in terms of food sources, and what that looks like when we apply it to a healthy eating diet. So for those of you who have not attended a webinar with me before in the past, my name is Madison Walsh. I'm a registered dietitian and also have my Master's of Public Health from the University of Toronto. So I love talking about anything food and nutrition. This is kind of my favorite area, of course. So I've been doing lots of webinars in the area of nutrition since like April, I think, when we started these webinars online. So if you're interested in watching other webinars, they're all recorded, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I'm also going to send you all a link right here in the chat to the Kingston website, who have done a wonderful job of putting all of the links for all of the different webinars that have already been done. So these are all there on the Kingston Calf Connection website. So that's the link there if you want to go back and you can watch any of the webinars, both from myself and other wonderful health promotion specialists around the country. All right, so before we jump into the material, just wanted to go over a few notes. So first of all, the presentation that you are about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. So please don't try to reproduce or retransmit these slides. In addition, some of the topics in this webinar may be of a sensitive nature. Typically mine, since they're nutrition focused, aren't really so much sensitive, but of course, if you have children with you at home, then we just ask that you use your own parental discretion in terms of whether or not kids are watching these webinars. That would be great. Also, let's make sure that we are respecting each other's privacy. So there is a chat box there on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to use it and engage as much as you would like with the presentation. But don't feel like you have to, but just know that anyone who does share something, if there's a personal story or anecdote that does get shared, then let's make sure that that stays within the group and we don't go sharing other people's stories outside of this webinar. That would be wonderful as well. And lastly, like I said, we are recording this webinar, so you and others will be able to go back and view it later on. It can be found at the website link that I just sent. Once it's recorded and posted, it takes a little while for them to be posted, but probably in a few weeks, this one will join the others, and you'll be able to rewatch it or recommend it to your friends if you think that they could benefit from it. So please do make use of that resource. It's really great that we have access to all of them, even after the live filming. Okay, so we'll start out with one of our statistics polls. We like to do these, we'll have one now and then two at the end to get your feedback on the webinar. So we use these just for the purposes of gathering data on who is watching and how the presentations are going and whether they're successful. These polls are completely anonymous, so I do ask that all of you answer. In no way will your personal information be connected to your answer. It's just for statistics purposes. So I'm going to make that poll live here in a moment, and you should be able to select the correct answer for yourself. Okay, that should be available there now, if you wouldn't mind just filling that out really quick before we jump in. Okay, we have 22 of 24, so if you haven't answered yet, please just make sure that you do before the end of this webinar. I really, really would appreciate it. It will be up the whole time, so you can give your answer as you go if you'd like. Wonderful. Okay, so now we are going to jump in to our material on vitamins today. So in order to make the slides a bit more easy to read and view for you, I'm going to turn my video off so that the presentation becomes a little bit larger on your screen. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You'll still be able to hear me, just not see me, and then you'll have a better view of my slides. Let me know if anything weird happened when I did that, and we're going to get started. All right. So in terms of the general idea of micronutrients, basically they are one of the major groups of nutrients that your body needs, the other one being the macronutrients. So if you're interested in learning about the macronutrients, and that includes carbohydrates, protein, and fat, I did a series on these as well. So we did a focusing in on the macronutrient series several weeks ago, and I did one webinar on each of the 3 macronutrients. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in those, you can go back and view those webinars through the link that I just sent earlier. But this time we're going to be focusing on micronutrients. So it's the other major type of group of nutrients that your body needs in order to survive. So this category of micronutrients includes 2 types, vitamins and minerals. And like I said, today we're focusing only on vitamins. Next week, a week from now, we'll be doing minerals. So vitamins and minerals must get through food and beverages, or they can be supplied through supplements. So basically you either have a balanced diet and you're getting all of your vitamins and minerals, or for certain populations and certain people, you can also get them through supplements in pill form, like you see on the image there. So that's kind of a brief rundown on what a micronutrient is and what we're going to be talking about here today. So I have another poll for you. This one is not for statistics purposes, so you can only answer this one if you want to. There's no obligation for this one. However, it is also anonymous. So I'm just curious, how many of you currently do take any vitamin supplements? So we're not talking about minerals today, just vitamins. So that's vitamin C, vitamin B, vitamin A, D, E, and K. So any of them that start with the word vitamin and then a letter, if you're taking any of those supplements, then I'd love for you to let me know. So I'm going to do another poll here and just say yes or no if you feel like sharing whether or not you're currently taking any vitamin supplements. Just gives me a good idea of kind of where we're at in terms of the group, so that I know how many of you are already taking supplements and how many are not, and we can discuss the reasons behind why you may or may not take a supplement as we go along. All right, so it looks like we have a larger chunk that are not, but we definitely have about 30% that are taking supplements, so that's really interesting. And if you'd like to share in the chat which ones you're taking, I see a few people already have, then you can feel free to do so, but again, no obligation, only if you're interested in sharing. So we've got D and B12, B, C, D, E, and zinc. So zinc is actually a mineral, it's not a vitamin, so that will be in our presentation next week. We have D, B complex, and K, a multivitamin. That's a really good one, yeah. Okay, great. So lots of variety there. Those are all pretty common ones to be taking. So we're going to talk about each individual type of vitamin and go through, like I said, what they do and really whether or not you need a supplement. So I have a slide for each one that discusses the certain circumstances where you might need a supplement, or in cases where it's unlikely that you do, then we'll talk about that as well. So hopefully that will make it more clear on what supplements might be worth your while and what wouldn't be. Okay, so vitamins, there is actually 2 subcategories of vitamins, and we divide vitamins into water-soluble and fat-soluble. So water-soluble vitamins includes the vitamin B complex. So there's lots of different types of vitamin B, and we're going to talk about that later. I see, Maria, you mentioned the B complex vitamin, so that's really great. You clearly are already a little bit familiar with that. So there's tons of different B vitamins, which we'll discuss, and vitamin C. So those ones are your water-soluble vitamins. On the right-hand side, we have fat-soluble, and those ones include vitamins A, D, E, and K. So 4 of the different types of vitamins are fat-soluble. So what this means, so basically for water-soluble vitamins, it's pretty easy, it's pretty self-explanatory, and it just means that they can dissolve in water. So these types of vitamins, vitamin B and C, are carried to the body's tissues, and water is the mechanism in which they're absorbed because they dissolve in water, but they're not stored in the body. So we actually, if we have excess amounts of vitamin B or vitamin C, then they're just urinated out of our body when we go to the bathroom, so we don't store them. So that means that it's important to consume these types of vitamins on a daily basis to make sure that you're getting your required amounts of vitamin B and C, because we don't have the ability to store it long term. This also means, though, that it's less likely to reach a toxic level of these vitamins, because anytime that you have too much, your body will just kind of get rid of it through your urine. So it's really, really unlikely that you're going to ever reach like an overdose, I guess you could say, of vitamin B or C, because your body is just going to take what it needs and dispose of the rest. On the other hand, we have fat-soluble vitamins. So these types of vitamins are ones that can dissolve in fats and oils. So when we consume foods that have vitamins A, D, E, and K, it's best that we make sure that these foods are consumed along with a fat, because they're absorbed along with that fat in the diet, in the body. So the fat actually helps you to absorb these vitamins and make use of them so that you can really benefit from this type of nutrient. And these vitamins can also be stored in the body because they're stored in the body's fatty tissue because they're fat soluble. So as opposed to the water soluble vitamins, which aren't really stored, these ones are stored in your body's fatty tissue. So this means that it is a little bit more likely that we could potentially reach a toxic level of these 4 types of vitamins. However, it would be really difficult to do that just through food. So the main concern, for the most part, for reaching a sort of an overdose or toxic level of those fat-soluble vitamins would be if you're taking excessive amounts of supplements. But overall, for the most part, it is pretty hard to do if you're just getting the vitamins through food. So there's nothing to worry about there if you're just eating a diet, but it could be a potential concern if you're eating, large amounts of, if you're consuming large amounts of supplements. However, that being said, the amounts of supplements that are sold in the grocery store and the drugstore are all approved by Health Canada, and they're approved in the amounts that are considered safe for an individual, an average individual. So for the most part, as long as you're following the recommendation on the bottle, again, you're probably not going to reach a toxic level. It's only if you maybe swallowed like 5 or 6 pills of supplements at once, then you might have something to worry about. But otherwise, it's really not a huge issue because we generally are good at making sure that we don't exceed those levels. So hopefully that clarifies the difference between water soluble and fat soluble. And now we're going to jump in and discuss the different types in a little bit more detail. So we'll start off with the B vitamins. So there's quite a few B vitamins. So of course, I'm not going to go through every single one. I've kind of just decided to lump these ones together because I could probably spend an entire lecture just talking about the B vitamins because there is so many. So we have vitamins B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B7, B9, and B12. So you'll notice some numbers are skipped. I don't think there's any particular reason for that. That's just sort of the way that we've named them. I think maybe they're leaving room for the ability to discover more B vitamins if any others kind of pop up. But these are the types that we are aware of right now. So they all also have a name along with the number that they are referred to. So for example, vitamin B1 is also called thiamine, or B12 is cobalamin. So these are each individually named both by number and by actual name. So sometimes they're more commonly referred to as their number, sometimes they're more commonly referred to as their name. For example, B12 we mostly just call B12. But things like biotin, for example, B7 is more commonly called biotin than B7. So that's just kind of the way that their names have developed. I see we've just got a comment here. I'm just going to take a look. We have to take all the time or 3 months and 1 month break and go on. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, Florin. If you want to clarify, I'm a bit curious what you mean, but yeah, I'm not too sure what you mean by that, but I can, if you have a question about it, I can help clarify, so just let me know. Okay, so how can we take supplements? Is that what you're wondering? It would depend. I mean, certainly you don't have to take them all the time. Like if it's something that you feel that you need after talking with a healthcare professional, then they would give you guidance on whether or not you would need to take them all the time. Some people take certain vitamins at different types of year. So for example, some people may take vitamin D in the winter and not in the summer. So things like that, but it really depends on the individual and the reasons why you're taking a certain vitamin or mineral. So it would be very personalized. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Okay, so here we go. These are all of the B vitamins. Like I said, I'm not going to break them down each individually, but they do work quite closely together. And in fact, they often occur in the same foods. So we often see that B vitamins are coming from the same types of foods. So that's part of the reason why I've lumped them all together, because the sources are often very similar and they really work quite closely together in their functions. Okay, so here we go, B vitamin function. So probably the main one and the most commonly known function of the B vitamins or the B complex is energy metabolism. So they play a really important role in making sure that your body has enough energy to make it through the day, and making sure that all your cells are functioning properly and that they have the energy to do their individual jobs. They also play some other roles that are maybe a little bit less well known. So they can help convert food into energy to synthesize glucose. So that kind of falls under that energy metabolism role. They are needed for healthy skin, hair, muscles, brain, and nervous system. So lots of really important roles in all types of different cells. They help to make lipids, which are fats, neurotransmitters, steroid hormones, and hemoglobin. So that's a lot of fancy words, but basically it's just helping to make certain types of compounds or cells in our body, including red blood cells as well. They help to create those, so to keep our blood healthy and continue to produce more blood cells. They help to break down fatty acids and amino acids. So when we consume fats or proteins, they help to break down the units of the food that we consume and allow those foods to be absorbed in the body and then used for energy, again, linking back to the energy metabolism concept. And in some cases, they're known to potentially lower the risk of heart disease. So of course, this is a very simplified list. There are many, many, many functions of all of the B vitamins because there are so many. And so this is just a basic list that I kind of put together, combining the different functions of the most common ones that they do together. But of course, they all do lots of different things in addition to these that I've listed. So each B complex vitamin, so each type of B vitamin has their own specific functions in the body, and they all play a role through these specific functions in energy metabolism and helping to promote cell rejuvenation and all of those different functions, like I mentioned, in the body. So individual B vitamins will affect one another's absorption, they affect each other's metabolism and each other's excretion. So like I said, they play their roles so closely together. They really work together to make sure that they each can do their job effectively and quickly. So they're like sister vitamins, basically. That's why I've really grouped them all together. They all kind of play very similar roles. And like I said, they are all found in quite a few of the same types of foods. So when we look here at the types of food sources where we get our B vitamins, there's quite a few of them. So meat and animal products. So meat, poultry, fish, and organ meat is a common source of B12. I talked quite a bit about B12 in my vegan and vegetarian diet presentation, because this is something that's important, particularly with vitamin B12, because vitamin B12 only comes from animal sources. But of course, there's other types of B12, and some of these other types do come from plant sources as well. So like you can see on the right-hand side, I have quite a few listed of vegetables and fruit. Of course, there's more than just those that I have listed. These are just some of the common ones where we can get a variety of different types of B12. There's also other types of protein products and plant products, so dairy, soy products, eggs, whole grains and legumes. Tofu is a soy product, nuts and seeds, and yeast. So again, just to be clear, these are just a few. It seems like a long list, but of course, there's B vitamins in lots more different types of foods than just these. These are just some of the ones that they all tend to have in common and that are more generally plentiful with the B vitamins. So not all of these foods have every single B vitamin. Of course, some of them have some and some of them have others. But these are just some foods that tend to have fairly high amounts of B vitamins, whether it's vitamin B12 or another type. It would depend on the specific food. All right. So we'll talk now about supplements for vitamin B12. And like I said, we're going to do this for each individual vitamin. So for certain types of B vitamins may be required for certain individual people. So some people will take a vitamin B complex, as you see on the picture there. That means that it has all of the different B vitamins in it. So it's actually pretty common to take this B complex vitamin. And it is recommended that if you do need B vitamins, it's probably a good idea to just take the entire B complex vitamin because, like I said, all of the individual vitamins affect one another's absorption and metabolism and excretion. So they work together and they like to be, in close contact with each other. So it makes sense to take them together. So if you are taking a B complex, then that's probably kind of the reason behind why maybe you were recommended to take it. At the top there, I have two different ones that you may potentially need to take on their own or more specifically. So for vegans and vegetarians, those individuals may need a vitamin B12 supplement. Like I said, that's because it's generally only found in animal products or in products that have been supplemented or fortified with vitamin B12. So unless you're consuming enough of those fortified products, it may be a good idea to also take a vitamin B12 supplement. In addition, the other one that I want to single out is vitamin B9 or folic acid, or also known as folate. And this one should be taken. The recommendation is that all women of childbearing age, so 14 to 50 years old, that could potentially become pregnant, it's recommended that those individuals should take a folic acid supplement. And the reason behind that is that a deficiency in folic acid can lead to some unfortunate birth defects called a neural tube defect in the baby. So making sure that anyone that could potentially become pregnant has enough of the folic acid in their body is really important, because a lot of times pregnancies can be unplanned, or they can happen and you don't realize that you're pregnant until a little while later. So it's important that you always have normal levels of folic acid. So that's why the recommendation is that anyone who is in that age bracket who could potentially become pregnant, it's a good idea to take a folic acid supplement. And the amount is 0.6 milligrams per day. So some multivitamins might have this amount. So then in that case, that would be good. Or you could take a specific folic acid supplement if you're not taking a multivitamin. And again, just to remind everyone that it's always, always, always really important to speak to a healthcare professional before you start a new supplement. So making sure you either go to your family doctor or a dietitian, someone who is an expert in this type of thing with food and nutrition and supplements would be really important, just to make sure that, there's nothing that will go wrong. Some vitamins and minerals can have certain interactions with medications or other substances that you may be taking. So it's really important just to make sure that you talk to a healthcare professional. Even though these are sold over the counter and you can get them without a prescription, it's still a good idea to make sure that there's nothing wrong with you taking these. So it's always a good idea to check in with your doctor or dietitian before you start something new. All right, so that's it for the B vitamins. Now we'll talk a little bit about vitamin C. So vitamin C is the other of the 2 water-soluble vitamins along with vitamin B. So this one has many functions. Most importantly and most commonly, it helps to make collagen. And collagen is a connective tissue that knits together wounds and helps to support blood vessels, tendons, ligaments, and bones. So it's really important to have healthy, strong collagen so that all of those connective tissues stay healthy. You're strong and able to repair tears and injuries more quickly. Vitamin C also helps to form and repair blood and bones and other tissues, so that wound healing type of role. It does have a role in immune function, but for this one, I just want to speak a moment about kind of the cold flu issue with vitamin C. So it's really common that people will suggest that someone maybe takes some doses of vitamin C supplements if they're trying to avoid getting a cold or flu, or if they are sick and they want to heal more quickly. But it's important to know that taking vitamin C will not necessarily have that role. It's a bit of a myth. And really where it comes from is just the fact that vitamin C is one of many types of nutrients that helps to improve and allow your immune system to work properly and to function at its highest potential. So it is important that we are consuming vitamin C, but by taking more high doses of vitamin C, you're not really going to magically boost your immune system to a higher level than where it would already be functioning with adequate levels of vitamin C. So just to clarify that, it just helps your immune system to function properly. And the evidence that it will help to reduce colds or flus is really not very convincing. So there's really no need to take a high dose of vitamin C for that reason. That being said, there also is really no harm in doing that because, like I mentioned, vitamin C is water soluble and you'd likely just excrete it in your urine. So you may just end up paying for a supplement that just ends up going down the toilet anyway. So it's probably better to save your money and not really worry about taking extra amounts of vitamin C because your body will just discard of them anyway. So yeah, wound healing is another one, which I've already mentioned. It helps to absorb iron from plant foods. So a certain type of iron that's available in plant foods is really important to help with the absorption of that because it is less utilized compared to the iron that is available in animal foods. So it's important to use vitamin C to help absorb those. So that's why often vitamin C foods like citrus fruits, for example, are paired with foods that have iron in them in terms of plant foods. Just seeing that there's a few comments here. Yeah, so you definitely can't overdose on vitamin C. Like I said, there is a potential in the fat-soluble vitamins to overdose and have too much, a toxic level, because they can be stored in your body as opposed to these water-soluble ones, which it's very unlikely because they're not stored in your body. And then I see a question about fluorescent lights draining our vitamin C stores. That's very interesting. I honestly can say I've never heard of that. So to my knowledge, I do not believe that they do. I can't imagine why they really would. So I probably wouldn't worry about that. I can certainly take a look into that maybe later. But no, I've never heard that. So I probably wouldn't worry too much about it, but I could certainly do a quick search at the end of this webinar. If you're interested, you can remind me later. Okay, so there we go. Oh yes, so it is also an antioxidant. So we're going to talk about quite a few different vitamins that function as antioxidants. And basically what an antioxidant is it's just a molecule, such as vitamin C, that helps to prevent free radicals from doing damage in your body. So free radicals are just molecules that can do some damage to your body. And by having an antioxidant, it kind of helps to protect your body from these molecules that are called free radicals. So it's a bit of a chemistry heavy concept, but the important thing to know is just that they have really positive functions in preventing harm to your body. So because of that, antioxidants are often said that they may lower risk of certain cancers and other chronic diseases. But again, this is only in the required amounts. There's no need to take significant levels of antioxidants in order to further lower the risk. All that's important is just to make sure that you're consuming your normal levels through normal amounts of food of all of these vitamins and minerals. And in that case, as long as you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables with these types of vitamins in them, then you'll probably have slightly lower risk of cancers than if you weren't consuming any of them at all. All right, so in terms of where we get vitamin C, mainly vitamin C comes from fruits and vegetables. And for the most part, pretty much any fruit or vegetable that you could think of has at least some vitamin C, but here I've put kind of some of the ones that have the most vitamin C. So probably the most common source of vitamin C that everybody knows is citrus fruits, like oranges, lemons, and limes, grapefruits, things like that. But there's many, many more types of fruits and vegetables that contain vitamin C. So, excuse me, berries like strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries would all have vitamin C. For other fruits like kiwi, melon, mango, watermelon, and pineapple, as well as many more, would all provide sources of vitamin C. On the vegetable side, potatoes, broccoli, bell peppers, leafy greens like spinach and lettuce, tomatoes, Brussels sprouts, and squash are just a few examples of some vegetables that contain vitamin C. So as you can see, there's lots and lots of foods or fruits and vegetables that provide vitamin C. And therefore, it's really not too difficult to get the amounts of vitamin C that are needed for your body. So in terms of a supplement, it is important, like I said, to consume vitamin C every day because we don't have the ability to store vitamin C. It just is excreted. But most people do not need a supplement because it is fairly easy to meet your needs with fruits and vegetables. So as long as you are able to consume a variety of fruits and vegetables, then you should be completely fine in terms of vitamin C. So the only types of people that would really need a supplement would be, let's say, if you live somewhere where you have poor access to fresh fruits and vegetables, if you can't afford fresh fruits and vegetables or even frozen or canned, because even frozen or canned would absolutely still provide vitamin C. But if you're not able to afford a variety of any form of fruit or vegetable, then that could potentially mean that you're not getting enough vitamin C. But for the most part, for those of us in Canada, especially for those of us who are employed by the military, you likely are able to consume at least some variety of fruits and vegetables, whether it's fresh, frozen, or canned. It doesn't matter. Any way that you can consume fruits or vegetables would provide you with adequate amounts of vitamin C as long as you're consuming some on a fairly regular basis. All right. We'll move on now to vitamin A. So now we're transitioning into the fat-soluble vitamins. So as I mentioned, we have 4 of those, and it's A, D, E, and K. So vitamin A has many functions. Again, oftentimes vitamins are very famous for one function, and then kind of nobody ever really knows about the rest. So the one that vitamin A is most famous for is helping with vision. So everyone always used to say that you should eat your carrots to help make your eyes be able to see properly, because carrots do happen to be a good form of vitamin A. So this is definitely true, but again, it's not quite so easily and direct. Just because you eat a couple extra carrots a day does not necessarily mean you're going to all of a sudden have 20/20 vision. However, that being said, vitamin A is just generally important to have your eyes working properly. It can also help with night vision, so seeing a little bit better when there's a lack of light. So seeing a little bit better in the dark, vitamin A can play a role with that as well. But again, it's not some magic thing. Just because you eat foods with vitamin A doesn't mean you're going to all of a sudden be able to see every single thing, 20/20 vision. So it's just really important to maintain a regular intake of vitamin A in order to maintain the health of your eyes. So vitamin A also has many other functions. For example, it keeps tissues and skin healthy. It helps with bone growth and reproduction. It does as well help to maintain the function of your immune system, similar to vitamin C. And it is another example of an antioxidant, like I talked about with vitamin C. So again, it combines with chemicals that can damage your body and prevents them from being able to do that damage. So similar to vitamin C, it can also have a protective role in things like cancer and other chronic diseases when it's eaten in regular amounts. So it is important to make sure that you consume a regular amount of all of these antioxidants. Okay, we've got a comment. If you eat carrots, you can see like a cat during the night. Yeah, I think I don't know exactly if it's like a cat, but definitely it does help to improve your night vision. Yeah, perfect. Okay, vitamin A sources. So again, carrots is a really popular one that everyone thinks of when they think about vitamin A, but there are so many more sources. So often we do see the actual vitamin A itself comes actually only from animal sources. So if you're actually seeking out vitamin A as a vitamin on its own, then that would come from your animal sources. So liver, so your liver organs from different animals, eggs, shrimp, fish, fortified milk, butter, and a few different types of cheeses. So these sources are what provide our body with the vitamin A itself. When we look at plant sources, actually these plant sources are not providing us with vitamin A directly from the plant. They provide something called a carotenoid or beta carotene, and these compounds are then converted to vitamin A in our body. So it really is just as good because we're consuming these other compounds, but then our body turns them instantly into vitamin A once we consume them. So that's why they're considered sources of vitamin A, even though they don't actually have the vitamin itself in these types of foods. So this category, typically we find beta carotene or carotenoids in your bright dark colored vegetables and fruit. So dark orange, dark green, yellow, and red are kind of generally the ways that we find these beta carotene compounds that help us to make vitamin A. So lots of really bright orange and other bright colors. So sweet potatoes, carrots, of course, pumpkins, squash, spinach, mangoes, turnip greens, broccoli, kale, and cantaloupe. So those, again, are just a few. There's tons and tons of different fruits and vegetables that contain beta carotene that can help us to convert it to vitamin A. So it's basically, my point is that whether you eat animal products or plant products, it really should not be too difficult to make sure that you're consuming enough vitamin A, because you can get it in both plant and animal sources. So do you need a vitamin A supplement? Generally, the answer is no. Most people do not need a vitamin A supplement. We can store vitamin A in our liver and in the fat stores for long periods of time. So we really aren't ever at risk of becoming deficient, even if we're not eating vitamin A every day or food with vitamin A every day. We have the ability to store excess, so then our body can draw on that for quite a while and make sure that you're constantly getting a source of vitamin A, even if it's not coming from food. So that's a good thing, and that generally is part of the reason why we really don't need a supplement of vitamin A, because we don't need it in huge amounts. We can store it and then use it later. So generally, it's just not necessary. Another reason why generally vitamin A supplements are not recommended is because if you do consume too much vitamin A through a supplement mainly, it can potentially be toxic because of the fact that we have the ability to store it in such large amounts. So if we consume too much, we can have some negative effects. Also, taking a supplement of vitamin A, pretty much as with any other supplement, it will not necessarily help prevent cancer. Obviously, like I said, these vitamins have really great health characteristics. They often do help lower your risk, but that doesn't mean that you should take a supplement just to prevent cancer, because it doesn't work quite that simply. So really, if you're eating a balanced, healthy diet based on Canada's Food Guide, which we'll talk about again a little bit later if you haven't seen it, this type of healthy, balanced eating will easily provide enough vitamin A to meet your daily needs. And we have a comment here. If you consume something like a carrot, will your body still convert it to vitamin A if you already have enough? Yes, I believe it will, because that is kind of the mechanism of how our body deals with beta carotene. So that's the pathway that it goes through. And as to my knowledge, I think it would follow that pathway no matter what, even if you already have enough vitamin A, and it would just continue to store it. Again, it would be really difficult for your body to store too much vitamin A if you're only eating foods. Like if you're only getting it from things like carrots or animal products, then your body's just going to continue to store it, and that's great, and then it will continue to use it, and it's very unlikely that you're going to have toxic levels. Usually the only reason you would have to worry about having too much would be if you're taking large doses of a supplement. So it's really not a concern that your body would still convert it to vitamin A, because your body can handle it in the amounts that come from food pretty easily. Okay, we'll move on now to vitamin D. So vitamin D is often called the sunshine vitamin, and that's because the sun's UV light actually converts a form of cholesterol that is under our skin into vitamin D. So when the sun hits your skin and it hits that form of cholesterol that stays under there, it will go through a mechanism and a pathway, and your body will develop vitamin D from the sun. So that's why it's called the sunlight vitamin, because that's kind of one of the main ways that we can get vitamin D is just by being outside in the sun. So some of the functions of vitamin D include being required for calcium absorption. So often we associate vitamin D with strong and healthy bones. And the reason for that is because calcium is really important for healthy, strong bones. And in order for calcium to be properly absorbed, we need to have vitamin C because it helps it to be absorbed. So it's not so much that vitamin D itself is contributing to your bones. It's more the calcium that is what's making your bones strong and healthy, but the vitamin D is what's helping you to absorb that calcium in order to have those healthy bones. So it also helps with your teeth, so strengthening your bones and your teeth, because your teeth technically are bones, and it helps your muscles, nerves, and immune system to function properly. Florin, I'm going to answer your question here in a bit when we talk about the supplements and whether or not you should take it every day. Okay, so just quickly, I want to go over the sources. So like I said, you can get it from the sun pretty easily because your body converts it from the UV light. But you can also get it in some types of foods. So vitamin D is actually present naturally in very few foods. The main ones include fatty fish, so things like salmon and sardines, beef liver, and egg yolks. And those are really the main sources that naturally are included in your diet for vitamin D. We also often will fortify certain types of foods with vitamin D. So dairy is one that's really commonly fortified, like your milk, because we know that dairy has lots of calcium, and we know that vitamin D is required for proper calcium absorption. So because of that, we've decided to add vitamin D to our dairy products to make sure that everyone can get the most out of the calcium that's included in the dairy. So that's really common. And you'll see that in your yogurts, your milk, you'll see vitamin D is in there, but it's not naturally in there. We've actually added it to those foods to help with the calcium absorption. Similar thing with some other types of foods. Orange juice is a common one. It's not always in there, but sometimes you'll see fortified with vitamin D on the bottle, and then you'll know, of course, that one has added vitamin D. Same thing with some non-dairy milks like soy and rice milk. Fortified cereals, sometimes we add it to dry cereals, and sometimes margarine is a common one as well. So you can certainly get vitamin D from these food sources. But it's not always super common naturally. So that's why we've chosen quite a few different types of foods to add vitamin D to. So Lisa, I see you've asked a question about how much sunshine, and I believe that's actually my very next slide. So there you go. So adequate amounts of vitamin D can be produced with moderate sun exposure to your body, averaging about 5 to 30 minutes twice per week. So Florin, you said 15 minutes, 3 times a week. That would definitely be plenty. It does depend on the person. So it depends on your age. It depends on where you are and how strong the sun is where you are. And it depends on your skin tone. So individuals with darker skin they don't absorb vitamin D quite as well as individuals with lighter skin. Another thing that can impair the absorption of UV and conversion into vitamin D is sunscreen. So if you are wearing sunscreen when you're outside, which most of us certainly should be doing, then that can actually slow down your body's ability to convert sunlight into vitamin D, because you're actually absorbing less of the UV rays as a result of your sunscreen. So that can also impair the amount of vitamin D that you're getting. So in those cases, you may need a bit longer sun exposure than the 5 to 30 minutes. It really depends on all of those different factors and how much how much sunscreen you're wearing, how much time you're spending, how close you are to the sun where you live, and all of that. So important to consider lots of different factors. And the other important thing to take note of is I have here on the slide that it's approximately 25% of the time to get a minimal sunburn. So of course we always want to avoid getting sunburnt, and it's saying here that you would be spending 25% of the time that you would need to spend in order to get your adequate levels of vitamin D. And if you spent like 100% of that time, then you would get a minimal sunburn. So it typically is not enough time. If you were not wearing sunscreen, it's typically not enough time to get a sunburn. But of course, it depends again on how sensitive you are to the sun. And I would always recommend that we wear sunscreen no matter what. So it just may mean that you need a little bit more time in the sun, or that you may want to consume more vitamin D fortified foods, or that you might want a supplement. And that's particularly common for us here in Canada, especially in the winter. We see very little of the sun when it starts to set around 4:30 or 5. So unfortunately, we probably don't get as much vitamin D in the winter as we do in the summer as a result of that. So like I mentioned earlier, it is common for some people to take a vitamin D supplement in the winter months and not worry about it in the summer months because they know they're getting more sunlight exposure. So we'll talk a little bit about whether or not you actually need a supplement. So individuals who do not get enough vitamin D from foods or who have low blood levels may need a supplement. So if you feel that you're not consuming very many of the foods that provide vitamin D that we just talked about, then it may be a good idea to take a supplement, because it's really not always the best idea to rely only on the sun. For many reasons, it's not super reliable because there's so many different factors that can affect how much vitamin D you get. And also we want to be wary of getting sunburnt, of course. So we want to limit our exposure to the sun by using shade and sunscreen and all of that. But then unfortunately, we may not be getting enough vitamin D. So it's really a good idea to focus on getting it from foods. And if you can't, then it might be worthwhile to take a supplement. So Florin, I see you've said, when I assume you're meaning 1,000, not 10,000. But yes, definitely 1,000 is a very common, so 1,000 IU, you can see here on the bottle in the picture, we have 1,000 IU in each pill. So that's a very common amount that individuals would take. Yes, okay, gotcha, perfect. Yeah, so another population that may need vitamin D supplement would be adults with osteoporosis or osteopenia. So the weakening of the bones, they may want a vitamin D supplement to help with calcium absorption, to help maintain their bones at the stage where they are so that they don't further experience more bone loss. And that's another part of the reason why there's a general recommendation that adults who are over 50 should take a daily supplement of at least 400 IU of vitamin D. And that's because as we age, it becomes more difficult for our bodies to make vitamin D from sunlight. It also is more important to make sure that we have enough to maintain the health of our bones, because we don't want our older population to become further down the road to become more at risk for things like osteoporosis. So by making sure that they're all taking at least a minimal supplement of 400 IU, then it's a good way to help make sure that the health of their bones is being maintained. So that's why that recommendation is there. So if you are over 50, then maybe you might want to consider talking to your doctor and starting a minimal vitamin D supplement if you're not already. And in terms of, we had a question earlier about whether or not you should take it every day. Again, that's really personal and depends on a lot of things. It certainly wouldn't really hurt to do so, to take a one pill supplement of 1,000 IU a day. There's really nothing wrong with doing that. It may not be necessary. It depends on your diet and how much vitamin D you get in your diet and how much you're getting from your sun exposure. So it's a very individualized thing. And again, I would recommend that you always speak to a healthcare professional before starting a new supplement. Okay. All right, just hold on for one moment. I'm just going to plug in my computer here because I'm getting low on battery. Okay. All right, there we go. So I just want to check the chat here and make sure there's not any other questions. I think we had a question here about vitamin D and K. So of course, vitamin D is really important with your blood levels of calcium. And the reason why sometimes vitamin D and vitamin K are taken together is that vitamin K can help to regulate calcium in your body. So it plays a role in helping calcium accumulate in your bones and helping with that. So it does often pair with vitamin D for that reason. So it definitely is not a bad thing to take the two together. And we're going to talk about vitamin K here in a little bit as well. Okay, so I think that was all the questions that we had for that. And we'll move on to vitamin E. All right. So vitamin E has many functions. It is also an antioxidant, similar to some of the other ones that I've mentioned. So it helps to prevent against cell damage with your free radicals. It also protects that's supposed to be LDL cholesterol from oxidizing, which is good because oxidized LDL cholesterol can increase the risk for cardiovascular disease. So if we are taking vitamin A through our diet or through a supplement, then you're going to help prevent that, which is great. It also does play an important role in immune system function and may help reduce the risk, again, because it's an antioxidant, it may help reduce that risk for certain chronic diseases like heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. Again, though, it's not necessary to take it in large doses. It's only really playing that role in the normal amounts. There's no reason to take more than what your body needs naturally. So you're not going to further reduce your risk by taking a large dose of vitamin E. It's just going to have that benefit as long as you're eating it in a balanced diet or taking a small supplement if that's something that you need. All right, so some food sources of vitamin E. So we have nuts and seeds, vegetable oils, avocado, whole grains, wheat germ, green leafy vegetables, and fatty fish. So you'll notice most of these are kind of the more fatty types of foods. So it is commonly found in foods that contain fat. But there are also some in some vegetables like spinach and lettuce and other leafy vegetables. But for the most part, it's your fatty foods that you're going to find vitamin E. So do we need a supplement of vitamin E? Again, most people do not need a supplement of vitamin E. So for the most part, this is really not necessary. Again, similar to some of the other ones that I just talked about, vitamin E is also fat soluble. So our bodies can store excess in our liver for days when we eat less vitamin E than usual. So your body can draw on these stores even if you're not getting vitamin E in your diet every single day. The other factor to consider when trying to decide whether or not you should take a supplement is that high doses of vitamin E also can be toxic if you're taking them in supplementation form. So again, if you're only having the 1 pill a day of whatever amount is in the bottle, in this case it's 100 IU on the bottle in the picture, then you're probably not going to have toxic levels because that's a level that's been deemed safe by Health Canada, so you probably wouldn't worry. But the take home is that it's really probably not necessary as long as you're eating some of the foods that I just had on the last slide. So unless you're someone who's on a very low fat diet, so not eating those fatty foods that we just talked about, or if you have a health condition that makes it difficult to absorb fat, then those types of people may need a vitamin E supplement. But if you are not in either of those categories, then it's probably unlikely that you require a supplement. But again, that would be a decision that you would have to make with your healthcare provider. So anytime that you're starting a new supplement, like I said, or even if you're thinking about stopping a supplement, it would always be smart to talk to your healthcare provider before making any changes in your supplementation. Also, like I said over and over again, taking a supplement will not help to prevent cancer. It's not so much about taking excessive amounts, it's more just making sure that you have a balanced level of all the vitamins in your diet, and that's what will help to reduce that risk of some of those chronic diseases. Eating a variety of vitamin E rich foods will also provide enough vitamin E each day. So again, just making sure that you're having a variety of food and following Canada's Food Guide. And then that's kind of the idea behind getting enough of really all of the vitamins, as long as you're consuming a balanced diet that includes lots of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and protein foods, and you're probably going to be fine in terms of your balanced diet and your balanced intake of vitamins. So I see that we have a question about whether or not it helps with muscle spasms. So I do know that vitamin E does help to build muscles and plays a role in supporting the health of your tissues and your muscles. We talked about here how it protects against cell damage and all of that. So it definitely does have a role in healthy cells and healthy muscles. I'm not exactly sure whether or not it's been scientifically proven to help with muscle spasms. To my knowledge, I don't know that it's super scientific, that statement, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'd have to look into that a little bit further. But I do think that it just plays a role naturally in keeping your muscles and your tissues healthy. It may help some with muscle spasms. I'm not sure. That would probably be something, again, to talk about your specific condition and what your spasms are like with a healthcare professional, so that you could figure out whether or not it would help. But to my knowledge, I'm not sure it would necessarily be the most effective. I don't know, though. Okay, there we go. Okay, vitamin K. So vitamin K functions include blood clotting. So it's important to prevent excessive bleeding after an injury. So you've scraped your knee, but having adequate amounts of vitamin K is really important to help those scrapes heal and stop you from bleeding. So if we didn't have enough vitamin K, then our body would just continue bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and that would be really dangerous because you would suffer from high levels of blood loss. So instead, vitamin K plays a role in helping to make those clots. So basically, those are what result in scabs on your body to prevent you from continuously bleeding. So it really helps those wounds to heal, which is a really important mechanism. It also does play a bit of a role in bone health, so maintaining the health and strength of your bones. All right, vitamin K sources. So here we go. So for some food sources of vitamin K, often we find it in mainly dark green leafy vegetables. So spinach, kale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, lettuce, and asparagus, just to name a few. Any of those dark green colored vegetables are really important. As well as some plant oils like canola and soybean oils would have some amounts of vitamin K as well. So again, do we need a vitamin K supplement? The answer, as it seems is the answer with most of these, is that most people do not need a vitamin K supplement. With the only people that may need a vitamin K supplement would be if you have a diet that's really low in leafy green vegetables. So again, if you live somewhere where you don't have access to those or you're not able to purchase them, then perhaps it may be a good idea to take a vitamin K supplement. But for the most part, it's really not necessary. And you'll see here actually that the image it's a bottle of vitamin K and D together. So Florian, you had asked about that, and it is really common to take the two together. I actually couldn't even find a picture of vitamin K of the same brand that I've been using for all my pictures on its own. There was only the picture of the K and D, so that's why I picked that one. So it is common to take the two together, but you can buy vitamin K on its own as well. It is absolutely possible. I just couldn't find a picture of it with this brand. So again, because the amount of vitamin K in supplements is much higher than the amount in food, it's important to talk to your healthcare provider before you start taking a supplement. Because similar to all the other fat-soluble vitamins, if we take too much of vitamin K, it may be harmful, and we could reach toxic levels if we take too much of it. All right. Okay, so you will notice that throughout this presentation, I didn't give the amounts for any of the vitamins that should be consumed, like the daily recommended amounts. And that's just because I thought it would probably be kind of boring, but me just reading out the amounts, because the numbers don't really mean much. But I will just talk a little bit about the levels and where we get those amounts. And it can be easily Googled. There's lots of resources, reliable resources made by Health Canada and Dietitians of Canada, where they talk about the amounts of recommended for each vitamin. So it can be found really easily on the internet, which is why I didn't include it in this presentation, just for the sake of time and interest. But basically, what you'll be looking for is a dietary reference intake. So this is based on the amount that we need to prevent any deficiencies and to help lower the risk of chronic disease. So that would be kind of the amount that's recommended for everybody to take. And then we have the tolerable upper level. So the UL is the maximum level that is likely to pose no risks of adverse effects. So sometimes you may notice that there's a UL for the recommended amount, like next to it, it will tell you what the upper limit is. And that's just telling you that, you know, if you take that much, you should be safe. But anything over that, it could potentially have bad effects on your body. So that's kind of the upper limit of how much of that vitamin you should be taking. And generally, for the most part, we do get adequate amounts of vitamins through a balanced diet. But I feel like a broken record a little bit when I'm saying that. I think I've been saying that throughout this entire presentation. As long as you're following a balanced diet, you very likely are getting enough vitamins, unless you fall under one of those unique categories that we talked about in certain types of vitamins. But that really is, again, part of the reason why I didn't talk about these specific amounts, because you don't buy a fruit or vegetable and it won't tell you exactly how much of a certain vitamin is in that fruit or vegetable, because there aren't labels on these types of foods. So it makes it a bit difficult to know whether or not you're actually getting the number that you're being told you need, which is why I've just left out those numbers, because it makes it just sometimes a bit confusing. So the important thing to know is, as long as you're consuming lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of whole grains, and lots of protein foods, healthy fats, and all of that, following Canada's food guide, then you're probably getting enough vitamins through that diet. So just as a general reminder about what healthy eating is, it's essentially just making sure you're getting nutrients and energy. And as long as you're balancing those two, then you're really following a fairly balanced diet. So you want to be focusing on your nutrient-rich foods, and that means basically the foods that have highest level of nutrients with the fewest empty calories, I guess you could say. So you want more of the micronutrients and macronutrients and less of just empty calories, like high levels of sugar or things like that. You want the foods that are going to provide you more of those essential nutrients. So by selecting a variety of foods, it's pretty likely that you're going to have a variety of micronutrients. So through that balanced diet, you're going to have all of the important micronutrients that are very likely included if you're eating a colorful, balanced diet. All right. So just again, I did say I would show you quickly Canada's food guide. So here we can see that the general recommendation is we want half our plate to be filled with fruit and vegetables. A quarter should be protein foods, whether that's plant or animal protein is up to you. And then another quarter should be whole grain foods. And if we generally follow this guideline for the types of foods that we're eating and the proportions that we're eating those foods in, then you're probably getting lots of good variety of vitamins and all other nutrients, including your macronutrients as well. Okay, so we do have a follow-up to this presentation, like I mentioned at the beginning. Next week, same time on Thursday, we will be talking about minerals. So it's the other category of the micronutrients. We just did vitamins, and now we'll be doing minerals. So I'm going to give you a link here if you're interested in registering for that. It should pop up there now. You can click the register button. It'll take you to a link to register. If you're interested in doing so, then you can do that now, or you can do it at a later time if you'd rather. And while you are all registering for that, that's wonderful. I do have a few other statistics polls before you leave. So while you're registering, I'll also put these polls live. First of all, I would love to know if you feel that you can apply what you've learned to your daily living. And just to note, the negative answers are at the top, positive at the bottom. And then also, once you're done with that one, I want to know as well how satisfied you are with the Demio platform. So Demio is just the website that we use for these presentations that you're on currently. And we just like to know to make sure that it's not giving anyone any huge issues. So it's good to know whether or not you're satisfied with the platform itself. Okay. So here we have a list of resources that are available to all of you for help and support anytime. So we have some mental health information, COVID-19 information, lots of different numbers that you can use and websites that you have access to if you feel that you need extra support. So you can take a photo of the slide if you want to have those numbers saved, then please do so. I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay. And that's really it. So if you have any other questions, I will hang on the line a few moments to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, you're free to go as long as you have answered all of these statistics goals, the one from the beginning and the two at the end. Make sure you answer those before you log off. And that's it from me. So hopefully I'll see you all next week for our mineral webinar. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.